The year is 480 BC. The mighty Persian Empire, under the rule of King Xerxes I, is marching westward, poised to crush Greece beneath its iron boot. Xerxes, son of the famous King Darius, sought to avenge his father's defeat at the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC and extend Persian dominance over all of Greece. His forces were massive, with estimates ranging from 100,000 to over 1 million men, though modern historians suggest the number was likely closer to 200,000. His army was not just composed of Persians, but also of various subject nations and mercenaries, making it a truly diverse and formidable force. In response, the Greek city-states began to unite for the first time in history. However, they were not yet fully united in purpose or strategy. Some city-states, like Athens, were eager to resist, while others were hesitant, reluctant to risk the wrath of the mighty Persian Empire. The Greeks knew that they could not defeat the Persians in open battle. They needed to find a way to strike at the heart of Xerxes' army, to slow its advance and buy time for the other city-states to organize and fight. The narrow pass at Thermopylae, a strategic location in central Greece, became the focus of Greek resistance. The pass, flanked by steep cliffs on one side and the sea on the other, was the perfect place to defend against a larger army. It was here that the famous stand of the 300 Spartans would take place. The Spartan decision. Among the Greek city-states, none were as feared and respected as Sparta. Known for their military prowess and disciplined warrior culture, the Spartans were the epitome of strength, courage, and resilience. The Spartans lived by a strict code of honor, training from an early age to be elite soldiers, known as hoplites. These heavily armored warriors were formidable in battle, but their discipline and unity were what truly set them apart. King Leonidas I of Sparta was chosen to lead the Greek defense at Thermopylae. Leonidas was not only a king, but also a warrior, chosen by the Spartan people for his courage and leadership. His decision to stand at Thermopylae was not one of blind bravado, but of tactical necessity. The narrow pass allowed a small force to defend it effectively against a much larger enemy. Leonidas knew the risks, but he also understood the importance of this battle for the survival of Greece. Leonidas's army was composed of around 7,000 Greek soldiers, including the famous 300 Spartans, who were selected for their courage and combat skills. These warriors were accompanied by their king and were equipped with long spears, large shields, and heavy armor. The rest of the Greek force was made up of soldiers from various city-states, including Thespians, Thebans, and Phocians. The 300 Spartans were not just warriors, they were the backbone of the Greek resistance, and their king had chosen them for a reason. These men were all hoplites, the best trained fighters in the Greek world, each one representing the strength, courage, and dedication that Sparta was known for. The first day of battle, the Persians, with their overwhelming numbers, arrived at Thermopylae and immediately began trying to break the Greek defense. But the narrowness of the pass worked in the defenders' favor. The Greeks held their positions, knowing that their strength lay in their unity and discipline. For the first day, the Persian forces attempted to advance, but they were met with fierce resistance from the Greek soldiers. The Spartans, using the terrain to their advantage, formed a near impenetrable line. The Persians, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with numbers, were unprepared for the disciplined Greek defense. The elite Persian immortals, an elite unit of soldiers, were unable to break through the Greek lines. Despite being well-trained and heavily armed, they were no match for the Spartan phalanx, which held strong. Throughout the first day, the Greeks inflicted heavy losses on the Persians. Leonidas and his warriors fought with unmatched courage, their shields and spears forming an unbreakable wall. The Persians, frustrated by their inability to break through, were forced to regroup and reassess their strategy. As the second day of battle began, the Persians realized they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. King Xerxes, watching from his golden throne, was astonished at the resilience of the Greek defense. Xerxes, desperate to break the Spartan line, ordered his best forces, the Immortals, to charge once more. But again, the Persian elite was repelled. The Greeks, with their discipline and coordination, held firm, using their shields and spears to keep the Persians at bay. On this day, the Greeks were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their freedom and their way of life. The Spartan warriors, led by Leonidas, stood as a symbol of defiance, an embodiment of the Greek spirit that would not bend before tyranny. On the third day of the battle, a traitor named Ephialtes arrived in the Persian camp. Ephialtes, a Greek from the region of Trachis, had come to the Persians with a dark offer. He revealed to Xerxes a secret path that led through the mountains and around the Greek defences at Thermopylae. This path would allow the Persians to surround the Greek forces, cutting off their retreat and trapping them in the pass. Xerxes, seeing an opportunity for victory, sent a large force to take the hidden path and flank the Greeks. By the time Leonidas realized what had happened, the Persian army had already begun to surround them. The final stand. Knowing that their position was no longer tenable, Leonidas made the fateful decision to send the majority of the Greek forces away, including the Thespians and Phocians, who had fought valiantly. He ordered his 300 Spartans to remain behind, along with a small group of Theban soldiers who had no choice but to stay with their comrades. The final stand of the 300 Spartans became one of the most heroic acts in military history. Surrounded on all sides, Leonidas and his warriors fought to the last man. Their bravery, determination, and refusal to surrender made them immortal in the eyes of the Greeks. The Spartans fought with unmatched skill and courage, but ultimately they were overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the Persians. The body of Leonidas was captured, but even in death, his legacy lived on. The Persian forces, despite their victory, were not able to extinguish the flame of Greek resistance. The Battle of Thermopylae, though a defeat for the Greeks, became a symbol of heroism and sacrifice. The Spartans had delayed the Persian advance long enough to give the rest of Greece time to prepare for battle. The naval battle of Salamis, fought shortly after Thermopylae, was a decisive Greek victory, and the final defeat of Xerxes' army came at the Battle of Plataea in 479 BC. The bravery of Leonidas and his 300 Spartans inspired not only the Greeks of the time, but also future generations. The idea of standing against overwhelming odds, of fighting for freedom and honor, became a central theme in Western history. The story of Thermopylae has been told and retold for centuries, reminding us of the power of courage and sacrifice in the face of tyranny.